All right, no one's here, but I'm going to go ahead and start talking. So if you're watching this archived for some reason because you just are a glutton for punishment and want to watch an archived, oh, somebody is here. Anyway, um, I hit 3,000 subscribers yesterday. So go us. Appreciate it. Uh, and I need to clean my guns, and so I thought that'd be a good live. I was between this and using this new meat grinder I got, but then I decided that it was going to be super loud grinding meat, and that would be a better review video that I could just do a voiceover on. So that's why we're cleaning guns today. Um, so if you're wondering where I got this holster, I made it because I make holsters because I carry revolvers exclusively. So not a whole lot of options out there for us wheel guys. Um, this cool little cutout here. It used to be a different style belt clip, and then I got a promotion at work, and they're like, "Hey, can you start tucking your shirt in?" And I was like, "You're gonna have to give me a few days. Got to figure some stuff out." So I put these other clips on that you can tuck a shirt behind once they're in your belt. Yeah, it worked out pretty good. Um, I've carried this gun essentially every day for the last 8 years or so, somewhere in there. I also live in Alabama, and it's incredibly humid here, so it gets sweaty. This is inside the waistband, so it's really, really humid in there, especially during the summer. Um, and you can hear my dogs running in the background. Gonna go ahead and get this out. Unload it because that's the best thing to do, when you're cleaning and stuff. This is my winter carry, which is the same exact gun as my summer carry, but during the summer, I carry 7 rounds of the Hornady Critical Defense, and during the winter, I throw in some heavier 158 grain semi jacketed hollow points for some four-legged critters just in case. Um, but anyway, this gun is pretty disgusting because it stays in my waistband like 12, 14 hours every day. Um, Probably going to be a lot of lint in there. I did notice that I've even got a little bit of surface rust coming up right in here. And I figured since I've got some on the outside, there's probably some on the inside. So my plans are to go ahead and take all this apart and check out how bad that is. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to wipe this down with oil and see if any of this comes off without any major effort. But I'm pretty sure some of this is going to require a little bit of elbow grease. But let me grab this oil and a rag. And I typically use like a sock with a hole in it, or one that got lost in the laundry because you've always got an extra sock laying around. But I've got an actual rag today, which is weird. So it's probably going to screw some stuff up. And just to double check, even though 2, 4, 6, 7, I know that there's 7 rounds over there. We are clear on all of this. Nothing in the chamber, nothing up my sleeves. Um, like I said, yeah, just gonna wipe this down. See what comes off. I don't know how well you can pick up, but that is just like dust and grime and stuff. Again, sweat and humidity, not the greatest for metal. This is stainless, but someone told me that that's really should be pronounced stainless because it stains less than non-stainless steel. Um, you are still going to get some rust in terrible conditions on stainless steel. And you can see there's a little bit of holster wear on this gun because, like I said, um, 8 times 350, I don't know, 2,700 days of carrying this. Is that right? I don't know. Somebody check my math. I'm using my calculator as a camcorder right now, so that sounds pretty close though. Alright, so a little bit of that came off of the trigger right there. I'm gonna grab a toothpick so I can get down in these crevices a little bit better. Or for our viewers across the pond, our crevasses. Be right back. And that is the beauty of doing this in the kitchen because you're right beside the toothpicks. Um, and yeah, that's what I thought. Most of this was just like lint and dust and grime and stuff, so it's coming off pretty easy. I think this rear side actually does have a little bit of rust coming up on it since it's not stainless, but that's pretty much scratching off too. I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. And that looks like that's a little bit of rust there, and right there behind the plate. I'm not 100% sure what that's called. Anyway, the thing that covers up the rounds from falling out of the back here. I'm sure inside of that's going to be wonderful, but when I take this off, hey, that's also called a plate. Maybe there's multiple plates. Maybe one of them's like a dinner plate and a dessert plate. Who knows? Um, yeah, that's some rust there. All right, so I'm gonna break out the little brush and see if I can polish some of this stuff off. Just go real light. I had a brass brush. I don't know where it went though. You know how things get, especially when you go like a year without cleaning your gun. Things just up and disappear. Yeah, it came off pretty good. There's going to be a little bit back in this trigger groove that's going to be an absolute nightmare, probably. But we'll just see how close we can get on it. And I might can access that a little bit better when I get inside here too. Hey, what's up? Who we got in here? Okay, good talking with you. So it's kind of neat to see. So it goes in there, and then this sits in my waistband like this. So this side is the side that's farthest from my body, and that is where the rust was. This other side doesn't have any, which I guess it's kind of protected inside this, and that molds around the trigger guard relatively well. So the only moisture is really coming in through the bottom. So I guess that's a 50% chance on getting on the front or the back, but it's kind of weird to me. Let's see. What's up? It is kind of the crappy thing about having stainless too, instead of having a blued finish, is you basically can't get rid of these like smoke rings. Or I guess you probably can, but I can't. Not with what I've got. But with a blued gun, you'd probably never see that because it's almost black anyway. Give it a little bit more scrub and see if any more comes off. Not that that's a big deal. It doesn't really affect any functionality. Just how it looks. That's certainly better than it was, but it's still pretty noticeable. But like I said, not not the biggest deal in the world. Hey, we've got two people in here now. We're at an all-time high today. That doesn't make a lot of sense. All-time today, and we're back down to one. But I'm probably going to clean at least one of these cylinders more than once because I'll lose count somewhere 3/4 the way through. But I suppose I could probably use the next size up brush. This is the 357 brush, so it fits in the barrel perfectly, but obviously the bullet diameter is smaller than the case diameter, and the case has to go in the cylinder. So here we are. I have noticed if you shoot steel case ammo, uh, and I read even this is a Taurus, so it's a little bit cheaper, but I've seen even on Smith and Wesson forums where people notice that they'll stick. Like when you shoot, I guess they jump out just a little bit and then swell, and it actually prevents the cylinder from rotating because they contact back here. At any rate, that's some free information, and I don't remember which cylinder I was on, and they all look shiny, so maybe I've done them all. At any rate, we'll get a little patch through there or something, get some of that extra oil out. And move on to the barrel. Is it gonna fit? Yeah, perfect. not exactly a patch and pretty well used, but it does the job. What's up? Happy Saturday. Yeah, those look nice and clean now. Just don't get like a borescope and look at them. I'm sure they're disgusting still. Um, and y'all are like super talkative. Can barely keep up with the chat. Well, didn't have that very tight, I don't guess. Barrel shouldn't be terribly dirty because ammo prices have just about kept me from shooting very much through this. But yeah, well, I can run an actual patch through here. I've got a not that. Hmm. Well, oh yeah, that'll fit. I don't have the little doodad that'll screw into this and take a patch, so we're still doing this one. Doodad is the technical term for what that's called too. Oh yeah, I should have picked up 30 or 40 feet per second with that polish. Just ran a brush across this forcing cone here. The same thing happens with it that does here. So you get gross looking black soot junk all over it. Again, I don't really think that's going to affect the function of anything, but while I'm here cleaning and got everything, I might as well wipe it down. Well, I guess we'll take these grips off. See how bad it looks underneath. I'm fairly certain it's going to be bad just because the outside of the gun already was. So if any moisture got in here, it stayed in here like it can't air out. I can't imagine that's good for metal. Those grips, they just have a little screw that goes through it. They pop off, I think. It doesn't look near as bad as I was expecting. You can see the little dirt line right there where that was sitting, but it's not near as rusty as I was expecting it to be in there. Gunk. I don't know if that's some glue from the factory or what, but we'll see if we can knock that off too. I am going kind of old school, just got some 3-in-1 oil. I know there's probably about 150 different things that do better than that for what I'm doing, but it's just what I've always done. Yeah, some of that ain't gonna just wipe off nice and easy. Look at this and see if we can finish that. I may wind up with a brush finished gun when this is done. I'm not careful. Matter of fact, let me just see. Got this nylon brush here. We'll see if it'll take any off, and it shouldn't scratch anything in the process. Well, it did basically nothing. I'm sure that it actually took some of it off, but the majority of it's still there. Have to get a little bit more abrasive. And even with that steel steel brush like that, some of this just didn't want to come off. Like I said, it feels like it's glue, like they had glued that factory handle in or something. Or since it gets like super hot here, maybe it just like melted a little bit into it. I don't know. That probably didn't actually happen. It does get hot here, but it's not hot enough to melt plastic. All right. I guess now I take this thing apart and we'll see how bad that is. Y'all pay attention as I'm pulling stuff out of here so y'all can help me put it back where it goes, because I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff in here that is pretty important where it lines up. A lot of grit down in there, so I'm gonna say you can kind of see even on those screws there, they look a little bit rusty. So probably gonna be a bunch of junk in here, but there wasn't a whole lot in this, so maybe they stopped in the screw threads, bolt threads, whatever you want to call them. Okay. I will say, even though this is like a more budget revolver, it's obviously fit pretty well together, because that is tight. Like you can't, it's caught catty cornered here. I can't pick that up anymore because it's kind of forcing a corner in there. I'm actually gonna have to push that down and try and get this other side started. So this is obviously the first time I've ever had this gun apart, which probably not the best thing, but something came out. That's going to be fun to put back in, probably. Hmm. Man, I hope this thing goes back together good. Now, this is slid up right here on this crane. It didn't want to go back in, so I wiggled it back to where it would go in the forcing cone. But this cylinder latch usually stays there and you push it forward to release the cylinder, but it's already forward. So that's interesting. Okay. I guess it's because the cylinder was open. That makes sense. That it actually holds it back in there. Anyway, all right. Let's see if we can get this plate back off. All right. Just had to do that like as square as possible. I mean, it doesn't look as bad as I was expecting. Once again, pleasantly surprised with how decent the inside of that looks. And it's not like I've never cleaned the gun, I've just never broken it all the way down. And I guess whatever I've done has been enough to deter rust from spreading to the internals. I was just worried when I saw it all over the externals that it had gotten in there. All right, let's see what we got going on here. If you have a double action revolver that you would like to carry, but you don't like the trigger on it, this back spring here is like your hammer spring. That's what adds the majority of the tension to your trigger pull. So like when you're pulling this, you're actually cocking the hammer too, if you didn't know, which I assume if you've got a revolver, you did. Um, but I think there's several different companies that sell lighter um, hammer springs, and if as long as it's a center fire revolver, like 38, 357, 44 mag, even I think they make a bunch of like semi-auto caliber revolvers now, like 9mm and 10mm and 40 and stuff. But you can lighten this up quite a bit and it still function correctly. With rimfire, like a 22 or something like that, you have to be careful because the primer strike on those need to be quite a bit heavier than they do for centerfire. They're just harder to go off. So if you get a light one of these, you'll probably wind up getting light primer strikes and the rounds don't go off, which is not ideal. But there's also a trigger reset spring. It provides a little bit of resistance. As you can see, it does compress, but it's not going to be much. Most of your poundage and stuff is going to come from right here. And then, of course, if your trigger is not smooth, it would be a pain, but all the places that metal is contacting, you can take them out and polish them so that there's no like rough edges, and that'll kind of smooth up your trigger as well. But yeah, this one, it came pretty good from the factory. I wouldn't mind it if it was a couple pounds lighter, but not a deal breaker. I still shoot it pretty well, and single action is great, so not bad at all. There's not a ton. There's like no rust on here that I see, so I'm probably just gonna oil this up, kind of wipe out any extra, and then try and put it all back together. Kind of getting down in there, getting any grit out that I can with the toothpick. thought that um, might be rust, but I think it's just kind of grimy stuff from being, it's kind of exposed because you've got this groove in the trigger that goes back up to it. So it's just pocket lint and who knows what. I will show you too. Like, I feel like a lot of people that don't think revolvers are safe because they don't have safeties or whatever, um, don't really understand how they work. So this right here is a transfer bar. Let's see if we can focus. It'll probably make more sense. This piece here is what they call a transfer bar, and the trigger has to be pulled back for that transfer bar to stay up. And if you'll notice, the hammer actually hits that transfer bar, and that's what transfers the energy to the firing pin. If you let go of the trigger, the transfer bar drops, and so there's no way, like you can't bump that and make a round go off because there's a pretty good gap between the firing pin and the hammer. So literally, I don't want to say it would be impossible, but it would be impossible for a revolver to go off without the trigger being pulled. Looking at you, Alex. But anyway, there's that. Yeah, other than that, they are relatively simple designs. Double action revolvers probably haven't changed a whole lot in the last 80 or 90 years, and they're not a ton different from single action revolvers. Just something that makes the cylinder go around when the hammer comes back, and something to release all the pressure so it hits a firing pin and sets a primer off. Pretty easy stuff. Not like I could go out and build one or anything. I mean, I guess I could, but it'd be a lot of work, and I'd be into a bunch of stuff that I didn't know what was going on. All right, so there was one person here when I started, and there's one person here now. If it's the same person, I'm gonna have to ask you where all the stuff goes that I just took off. You were paying attention, right? All right. Oop, there's a little puddle of oil right there. I'm gonna see if I can get up before I do that. Oh, I'll also say I talked about replacing this spring. Um, they are going to be brand and model specific. I know Smith and Wesson, I think, has like a leaf spring right here instead of these. This is like a coil spring, what would be like on the front of cars, and a leaf spring would be like what's on the back of trucks. Um, but it does the same thing. But if you were going to replace it, you would obviously need to be like, oh, this is a Taurus 66. I need a lighter hammer spring for that. But that's free information. All right. So this doodad came out of that hole, and I'm assuming it goes inside that hollow. This front screw, I think, was hollow, and this little spring-loaded pin goes in there. But we'll set the plate back on there and make sure everything lines up right. Whoop, 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 whoop. What we got here? So there's a little ear right there I didn't see. I bet it has to go in first because it wouldn't go in there flush otherwise. Well, that was satisfying. All right. So now I'm going to put these back two screws back in, and then we'll see if we can get that spring pin in here. These didn't seem like they were torqued just terribly tight. Like I said, I haven't had it open, so I'm just going to put it back about the way I found it. That seems like something the Boy Scouts would say. I'm not going to tighten that all the way down so it doesn't pull down out of square or anything. Okay, and now this thing, and I'm going to say that since that sits in that hollow screw, probably going to be easier to turn this gun nearly upside down and let gravity help us hold the pin in. That's probably like 11 pound-inches of torque. I have no idea what I'm saying. There's probably a torque spec somewhere, and someone probably has a torque wrench that puts stuff back together a lot, but I'm not terribly concerned about it as long as everything feels like it's functioning correctly. The crane is a little bit stiff, but like I said, it moved quite a bit when we had that apart. I don't really see what was holding that. Oh. I still don't really see, but it does have a little bit more play. Let me see if I can get a little bit of oil in there and let it work some magic. I guess so that I could have like killed YouTube's algorithm, I could say stuff like Jerry Miculek and Dirty Harry and Do You Feel Lucky and a bunch of revolver cliches that would be picked up by the AI and be like, oh, this is going to be a good video, even though it's not. Clint Eastwood. Blondie. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Doc Holliday. I'm nearly done. Feels like it's, yeah, that felt good. Yeah. I'm just making sure all of these, I'm holding just a little bit of pressure over here, and making sure that cylinder still rotates. I watched, oh, did we have something happen right there? No. I watched a guy that had a Taurus, 856, I think. Maybe Sam, the gun guy. Anyway, he had one, and something was screwed up in there. And if he was like taking his time shooting it, and he had shot, it holds 6. Let's say he shot 4 rounds, and he had 2 on this side. The weight of those bullets was enough to keep that cylinder from rotating around. Which, I mean, if he was running it fast, it wasn't a big deal because the momentum would just carry it around. But like if he was easing that trigger back like that right there and kind of staging it, the cylinder would fall back the wrong way. But that feels pretty good. So I'm gonna call that a relative success, maybe. It's not spinning like it does in the movies. I do feel like there's some grit or something in there, which I oiled down in that ejector rod. So maybe that'll work its way into it as we continue on. That crane feels a lot better now though. Put these grips back on and see what happens. I assume there's a mockingbird in my backyard. My dog is not excited about it not coming in and playing. I did learn with my first revolver that if you tighten these too tight, you can actually feel the back of the screw in the back side of the grip, like over here. It'll bulge out and you can feel that. I mean, it's not a huge deal or anything, but put just a little bit more. Birdie, let it live. Just making sure it doesn't come get us. I would hate to be attacked by a mockingbird, especially with an unloaded gun. I don't know what I could do right now. All right. I'm gonna call that good. I'm gonna. Could you stop? I'm gonna move on to one of my deer hunting rifles. We live out in the middle of nowhere, so I usually keep this loaded, or at least the magazine loaded, and then I keep it in the bathroom by the window in case we see coyotes or something. I've shot a few out there, as you can see, it got a little bit of moisture and corrosion going on from being in an environment like that, but it's not terrible. There's a little bit of surface rust you might can see. Probably can't. I mean, it's tiny. It's nothing like. Can you see that spot? Yeah, nothing like that. Oh gosh! Hey now, calm down. anyway, I think most of that will actually just wipe off with um, a rag. But I do have these brushes here just in case. You can actually see it coming off on the rag there. So it's very, very superficial. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take the stock off of this and go ahead and oil down everything in there. This is a Mossberg ATR 100 or 100 ATR. I can't remember what comes first, letters or numbers. But anyway, it was kind of like the predecessor to the Mossberg 4x4. They had two variations. This one has the nicer like two-stage trigger kind of deal. Um, and then the 4x4 became the Patriot, and a lot of mixed reviews on the Patriots, but I love this gun. The trigger is pretty phenomenal. I shoot pretty much just the cheapest junk that I can throw through it, hunting bullet wise. I like shooting like Remington core locks out of it when you can find them. I've shot some PPU ammo, just cup and core stuff for deer and coyote. Um, Everything shoots at least MOA or better. And I've never had an issue. Now I say that I'll explain the issue that I had here in just a minute, and it was my fault. So that was just some size hex, or if you're from around here, Allen head. I'm not sure what size that is. I just had a bunch of them, and I picked one out that fit. But I think it's just those two screws that hold that together. And then, might be a little bit of dried blood on the inside of the scope. I don't know where that would come from. It's almost like I take it hunting or something and might have had it on while I was dragging a deer out or something. Who knows? Something that would never ever happen to anybody else in the woods, I'm sure. But I'm not terribly concerned about the stock. It's just kind of gross, but I never see it, so not a big deal. That stock is super light too. Like even with the sling, that thing weighs like maybe a pound and a half. It's nothing. I'll take this magazine spring out so I don't lose any of that. The scope that I've got on this sucks. It is like a $30 Amazon scope, and I wanted one with a little bit more magnification. I had just a 3x9 by 50, which if you're deer hunting and like you're in the market for a new scope and you've only ever had 40mm scopes, I do recommend going up to a 50. I thought it was a bunch of junk like 15 years ago when people started talking about it. Like, oh, it lets in so much more light, and you know, you can sit in your stand and you if you can see a deer, you can see it through your scope, which is not necessarily the case with a 40mm scope. I'm like, whatever. They're like, yeah, it probably adds 10 more minutes or so to actual being able to hunt in the afternoons. It does. It lets in a crazy amount more light. But this is a 6x24, and it like flares out so bad anything past like 16 that it's essentially unusable. Like 18 max if the clouds and the sun are just right. You can get up in the 18, maybe 20. But I mean, for the most part, I leave it on 6. If something comes out, I might roll it up to 10. I wish I'd have just got like a 4x12. The glass on it is junk. The reticle is junk. Let's see if I can. I don't know if I can get that through the reticle. I gotta do some finagling here. I'm so close. I know I'm close. It's a weird angle. I nearly got it. Okay. So it got like the windage and drop elevation stuff, but I can't remember if they call that first focal plane or second one. It's the cheaper one. When you zoom in, all that stuff stays the same, so the same size. So the gaps are the same physical size. Whereas if it was, how do I explain that? It should get smaller as you zoom in. Wait a minute. The gaps between like one drop and the next should get smaller because the space on the target that you're looking at is getting larger. Wait a minute. I'm backwards. I don't know. It's been a long weekend. At any rate, it's wrong. Like it's right at a given zoom, but then after that, the size of the reticle should change with the zoom if it's going to be accurate on the how far something is supposed to drop and stuff. At any rate, I wish I didn't have that. I wish I just had a dot or a duplex or something, but I was stupid and bought this. And I was like, oh, it's $30. No. Anyway, so we'll get some more oil on this and it'll about be done. And then I'll tell you about the only time that I really had any malfunctions with this gun and why it was me being an idiot. Um, Another thing, this lightning bolt action that Mossberg went to in like 2009, somewhere in there. It's got like an adjustable screw right here that you can make the trigger lighter or focus right here, make it lighter or heavier. It's just a flathead, like it's super easy. You take two screws off to get into the stock, and then you can screw that in or out. I think it comes from the factory with a 2 pound set. It's supposed to be between 2 and 7 pounds. Being able to adjust that, um, like the first half a box of ammo that I put through this, uh, it surprised me going off because it was so light. I was used to probably about a 4 pound trigger pull, and it was just like it's a game changer for deer hunting, especially for somebody that's hunted with a heavier trigger. Whether you're coming from like a lever action that doesn't have a great trigger or just an older bolt action that whatever. This is a huge upgrade. I really enjoy it and I shoot it pretty well. I think that trigger helps a whole lot in that. Okay, I am going to put this back in the stock now that I've got all this stuff wiped down, and then I'll have something a little bit better to hold to while I'm cleaning the barrel out and stuff. You know what might help? Let's stick that magazine spring back in there. Hmm. I wonder which way is forwards and which way is backwards. I don't really think it matters. It's only going to matter how your stack alternates, but I think since that looks like a banana clip like that, I'm gonna load it with this end being towards the barrel. That makes sense to me. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, that sounds like it was supposed to do that. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a second. I guess, did I move that a while ago? Sorry, I guess I could turn it back this way. And y'all can look at a hair clip and scissors and stuff. Let this go. Okay. I will. What is that not threading in there? Oh, I bet that's the front one, and this is the back one. Because why in the world would they use the same size bolts to put these together? All that I'm gonna do now is wipe down or run a brush through the barrel of this because it's kind of cruddy. But before I do that, I'll tell you the story of this gun kind of malfunctioning. So I was in a tree stand and a deer walked out. I wasn't gonna shoot it, but I don't think I had shot one that year. It was later in the season, probably December, early January, something like that. And it was a little 8 point. I mean, it wasn't terrible, probably 14, 15 inches wide. And it gave me a great shot. 75 yards, broadside, looking away from me. It's great. So I get propped up, everything's perfect. Pull the gun, click, and I was like, dang, bullet snapped. So real carefully, I pull my bolt back, I catch the bullet, and I ease another one in. Deer's still like not doing anything, which if anybody's had a bullet snap on them, it's pretty loud when that firing pin hits. And everything doesn't do what it's supposed to, especially when you're expecting like a boom and you hear a it's not great. At any rate, by the time I get the other round in and close my bolt, the deer's like something's up, so it takes off running. I did make a bad shot. I did not recover the deer, which sucks. But what happened, and had I known this at that point, it was cold that day. It was very cold for Alabama. It's probably 30, upper 20s maybe. Um, had I known what had happened, I could have just opened the bolt and closed it, and it would have reset the firing pin. But the firing pin comes out right there in that hole. If you're ever cleaning your bolt, don't get any oil anywhere in this area because it will get down in there. And if it's cold, that oil will kind of congeal a little bit. It gets much thicker at any rate. And what happened was it was thick enough to slow the firing pin down enough that it didn't set the primer off. And like I said, had I known that, could have just rolled the bolt up and down. The firing pin would have reset. This would have been cleaned out from that pin going through the first time. Pull the trigger, and it would have went off, and the deer wouldn't have moved. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that's what happened. I just thought I had bad ammo, and the primer didn't go off. But that like super important lesson learned. Don't ever get any oil right in here because if it gets down in there and you're hunting and it's cold, it could create a problem. I'm not going to say it's going to, but it happened to me. I mean, I know a guy. That's all I'm saying. At any rate, I am going to go ahead and end the live stream. Like I said, all I'm going to do is just run a brush down this and go. Thanks for sticking around and watching and listening to me ramble about a lot of everything. I do have a video coming out Monday. Charlie made some Rice Krispie treats, so that'll be cute. If y'all want to, you can tune in 5:25 Central Standard Time Monday morning. that video will go up. So I hope to see you then. Thanks for watching.